Hey guys, it's Mr.C, a layman from reinforcemyfaith.com, and I wanted to talk about something that was on my mind and musing in theology at world, and that is translations that come from outside the church relating to church history. And I was just thinking about that because I rely so much on the early church fathers. I have a 10 volume set. Um, It's a 1994 10-volume set of the Pre-Nicene or Ante-Nicene Church Fathers. So all the Church Fathers are important documents before 325. However, this was originally made in 1885. And looking at the editors and those who collaborated to come put this together, we have Roberts, Donaldson, and Coxey. And we have them, Roberts as a Presbyterian, Donaldson as a Congregationalist, and Coxey as a member of the Episcopal Church. And looking at some of these documents found in earlywritings.com, there's three further translations of these early church fathers. And we have Lightfoot, who was an Anglican, Mr. Hull, who was Anglican as well, and then Mr. Philip Schaff, who was a Calvinist. And then for as the editor, as the main editor of the Ancient Christian Scriptures, Ancient Christian Commentary on Scriptures, we have Dr. Thomas Clark Oden, who is a Methodist. So all this got me thinking about just issues relating to translations, whether since it was in 1885, at least for the Ante-Nicene Fathers, whether new translations have come up or new fragments have been discovered. Because some of these early church writings are only found in fragmentary form, but maybe there was made new discoveries, so we can add. So those could be added to. So what do I have? My 1994, 1885 volume set. Whether that's the most updated one. And there's also issue of translation in terms of culture. It's fine. It's very readable how they are currently, but some words and some meanings, some idioms do change. And I would like it to be updated to modern standards. Unfortunately, modern is even more degenerate than was in the past. So it's almost like a double-edged sword there. Wanted an updated translation without it being paused or, having to conform to the new cultural norms. So that's an issue of me wanting a new translation from that. There's also theological aspects, which I mentioned that all of these members are not, they seem to be high church Christians, high liturgical churches, rather than low church, but still not Catholic. So when they translate certain words, certain phrases, they are going to have an inbuilt bias towards words and situations. So that's something to keep in mind, that it's always in the back of my mind when I'm reading these translations of the early church fathers and what they said. A little less problematic would be their study notes, because that's always at the bottom or extra, so that those you can take or leave, right? You don't have, they're not part of the text, but that's also an issue, I guess, if you get a commentary or a translation of these. And a specific issue relating to the ancient Christian commentary and scriptures would be that they present the text as RSB, which is okay so far. I mean, I use the Catholic RSB, but so let's say you're reading RSB translation from this set. However, what about, so they have the text of the Bible, but in the commentary they pick what a certain early church fathers meant to say about this text, but how do I know that is exhaustive, or what was the selection bias in terms of which church fathers did they choose to represent this text? So that's a little bit more problematic. It's better to have it than not to have it. And this overall, these two projects are a net positive in terms of understanding the early church. But I always wonder if, I guess my hope, my wish would be that in the future they would be a new translation. There would be two versions. just thinking the top of my head, the hardcover edition, which will be an interlinear edition. Maybe in the left side we have the original text language, and then on the right side we have the current English translation with a good introduction and good endnotes, or I should say footnotes. I hate endnotes, trying to flip to the back, so footnotes are great. So that would be for the hardcover, so it'll be a little more pricier. And then we can have a standard softcover edition, which just eliminates the left-hand side, the original language, and just has the English translations. That way, it's just more, I guess, economical and just straightforward in case those don't want to have that version there. And I think the other reason for the update is to see if there has been any new manuscripts found, or maybe had come up with at a Catholic or Orthodox in there, or just have it a straight up Catholic translation of these texts. That would be great. And with a, I guess, RSV second edition mindset in terms of translation, that would be the best way to update language to the English that the Revised Standard Version second edition of the Bible is the goal that it just tries to achieve, a more literal goal and a less politically correct goal. So that would be, I mean, if I had the resources, that would be one of my projects, to be a book publisher and release early Christian and just important text from the West, and have a hardcover version that has the original text on the left hand side with the English translation on the right hand side, and then soft covers which just has the English, and just have a curate that from the great books of the West with a Christian understanding, maybe really focusing on the early church, the church fathers, thinking about all the ecumenical councils in one book, also all the writings from the popes, obviously from the beginning. They're very sparse, but we can have that. And also, as we get to the modern age, the popes, before there were popes, right, their writings as well. There's probably some copyright issues, but I think we can probably get a lot before 1958 done. That would be my goal, to get a lot of these writings in physical format, right, and in English. It would be the ideal goal. And we know you do have Holy Mother Church to guide us, and the deposit of the faith is what it is. It stopped at the end with the death of the last apostle. And so we do have that. But in terms of learning and getting deeper into the faith, it would be ideal to have just availability of newer translation with newer manuscripts, with Catholic there, to even just to argue in the notes about this could be this translation, and or this could be a more Catholic as opposed to a more Protestant understanding of the verse and who the church father was. And I think that could open up a lot of eyes, and it could be a fun endeavor, something that would have to be, I guess, promoted, have some kind of course, but because I don't see, especially having less book readers and as such, the time one would have to invest in, getting translators, getting the copyright, getting the books published, and all that. Unless we popularize that and a new revival comes, it would be financially speaking, a net negative as opposed to a positive. But one wants to work towards the faith, and you do your part, and then God does His. So, just a musings on the early church fathers, just translations that are outside the church, and what we take for granted, and just to keep those things in mind. I think overall there's still a net positive if you're reading the early church fathers, even the post-Nicene fathers, but always with the understanding that it's better to start to see if there's additions that are come from inside the church, preferably before 1958, or at least if it's after 1958, to know if they're orthodox, quote unquote, conservative understanding and translations of texts. That way we can avoid confusion. Just focus on the text and meditate on that, to see how that enlightens us and how that brings us closer to God. All right, guys, this has been my musings. I'm Mr.C, a layman, Mr. Cologne from reinforcemyfaith.com. I just wanted to talk about some translations issues outside the church. Thank you. God bless, and seek the true, the good, and the beautiful.